Most people don't come to Pattaya planning to lose everything. They arrive with savings, a plan, maybe even a fresh beginning. But fast forward a year, and some of those same guys are now broke, stuck, and wondering where it all went wrong. The worrying part, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, in ways that feel completely normal while it's happening. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how people lose everything in Pattaya and why it keeps happening to the same type of guys over and over again. Some of these you've probably heard before, but some of them don't get talked about as much as they should. So, number 1. Remaining in Pattaya while the money is running out. Pattaya is probably one of the easiest places on earth to lose track of your spending, and that's even more so when you are going out every night for the nightlife. A beer here, a bar fine there, a taxi, some food, another bar, and before you know it, you've gone through a few thousand baht on what was meant to be just going out for a quiet drink. The problem is, even though the prices have crept up over the years, everything is still so cheap individually that it never feels like you are spending a lot of money. But it adds up fast, and most people have no idea what they are actually spending week to week because they never track it. The guys who lose everything here almost always have the same story. They arrived with some savings, the money felt like a lot in Thai baht, and they just started living. No budget, no plan, just going crazy every night really. And Pattaya will absolutely let you do that. Nobody is going to stop you. It doesn't matter if you are a tourist or a long-term expat. Pattaya is there to take your money in the most pleasant way possible, and it does a very good job at it. If you are on holiday, then I guess it's fine. But when you live in Pattaya or planning to stay a long time and you are living on savings, the problem starts when the savings start dropping, but your lifestyle doesn't. You tell yourself you will sort out some income soon, maybe a bit of online work, maybe something will come through. But weeks turn into months, and the money keeps going in one direction. By the time most people admit there's a problem, they are already in a hole that is genuinely hard to climb out of while staying in Pattaya. Because the lifestyle that is draining your money will always be right outside your door every single night. Number 2. Drinking every day. Pattaya is probably one of the worst places in the world to have a drinking problem, because it's also one of the best places in the world to have a day or night out. Bars will open early, the drinks are cheap, there's always someone around who's up for one, and always company to be found inside of the bars. Drinking every day in Pattaya is pretty normal, especially when you are on holiday there, but also when you live there, and that's where a lot of guys end up going wrong. Back home, there were natural breaks. You've got work, family, judgment, the cost. In Pattaya, most of those breaks are just gone. The thing that makes it so easy to miss is that it doesn't feel like it's a problem. You are out having fun, you're meeting people, and you're having a good night. You are not drinking alone at home. You are out there, you are social, and you are living. The health side of things catches people faster than they expect also. The combination of cheap beer, late nights, not eating properly, and the heat will take a bad effect on your body. And if you are an older man, like you have just retired there, then it's going to affect you even more. Guys who were healthy when they first arrived start looking rough within a year, weight gain, skin issues, and all kinds of other problems. And without sounding too judgmental, you can spot those type of guys a mile away, and so can the ladies. But the financial damage is just as real and probably less talked about. Even at Pattaya prices, drinking every single day adds up to a big monthly expense, and even though Pattaya is cheap, it's still not as cheap as it used to be, and the prices are still rising. And daily drinkers don't just drink, they also make worse decisions. They are more generous with money when they've had a couple, they lose track of what they have spent, they agree to things they wouldn't agree to if they were sober, and they wake up the next day wondering how they spent so much money. Again, this isn't bad if you are just there for a holiday, but if you plan on living in Pattaya full time, then it's something to really consider. Number 3. The trap of staying broke in Pattaya. This one you won't actually believe until you see it for yourself, because you would think if you are broke, you would just go home. But that isn't always the case. If you have never been in Pattaya before, you will see Farangs hanging about on Beach Road and little soys outside 7-Eleven with their bottles because they simply can't afford anything else. Pattaya eats a lot of people up, and even when some people are broke, in their head it's still better than going home. Where the smart move is clearly to leave, sort things out somewhere else, regroup, and maybe come back later in a better position. Most people don't take that exit. Instead, they stay and they tell themselves something will come up, or that they've got something in the works, that next month will be different. The city has a way of making broke people feel okay for longer than it should. You can still eat well cheaply, you can still find company, and even if you aren't broke but running low, you can still sit in a bar and have a few drinks and feel like everything is basically fine. If they have moved out there after being warned not to, or retired out there and simply can't afford it, going home means explaining what happened. It means admitting that the life they were posting about or telling people about didn't work out. There is no job waiting, maybe difficult family situations, a life they left for real reasons. So Pattaya, by comparison, still feels like the better option, even when it's making their situation worse every single month. Leaving when you still have money gives you some options. Leaving when you are completely out doesn't leave you with much, and trying to rebuild your life from zero is a much harder starting point than most people are ready for. Also, if you are friends with someone who's skint in Pattaya, chances are they will be asking you to buy drinks and everything else. I personally went through this. I don't live in Pattaya, but I do visit often. I've got a friend there. He's a great guy, get along really well, but he's absolutely skint and doesn't have much coming in each month. When we used to go out, he would bring enough for a couple of drinks, and then he would rely on me to pay for the rest of the night. In the end, I just had to cut ties with him. Yeah, he was a great guy and a good friend, but I wasn't there to be buying guys drinks. I was there to be buying the ladies drinks. Number 4. Opening a bar or business without experience. A lot of guys go to Pattaya and absolutely fall in love with the place. It's got everything they want. Beaches, food, nightlife, weather, the list goes on. The problem begins when they fall in love with it too much and want to make it their permanent home and move there full time. The bar dream is probably the single most common way foreigners lose serious money in Pattaya. You will be thinking, how can you move there full time while making an income? You are sitting in some little bar on a soy somewhere. The owner seems like he's just hanging out. The girls are fun and the beers keep coming. And some part of your brain starts doing the numbers. It can look easy. It looks like a good time that also makes money. But they don't realize that for every bar that is doing good, there is 20 or more in the city that are failing. Running a bar in Pattaya is nothing like sitting on the customer side of one. There's the rent, which is higher than you'd expect for what you are getting. There's the staff. There's the relationship with the mama-san, the drink supplier, the way certain people need to be kept happy to avoid problems you don't even know exist yet. None of this is written down anyway. It's all informal, and a lot of the time, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Most guys who open bars here also make the mistake of being in the bar constantly as a customer as much as an owner. You are drinking your own profits. You are giving free rounds to people you like. You are still treating it like a holiday and not a business. The bar becomes an expensive social club that you happen to own, rather than a business, and the money just disappears. And even if you do everything reasonably well, which there is a very slim chance you will, Pattaya has a graveyard of bars that simply didn't survive. The market is saturated. Tourist numbers are down. The street your bar is on can go quiet for reasons completely outside of your control. Guys pour so much money into making this dream come true, sometimes over millions, into a place, and they are closed within 18 months. The money is just gone. No assets, no return, nothing to show for it except some photos and a story they'll be telling for the rest of their life. Number 5. Taking financial advice from other expats. Pattaya has a very specific type of guy who has been there long enough to sound like he knows everything. He's been in the city 5, 10, maybe 15 years. He knows which bars are connected to who. He's got opinions on every street, every scam, every type of woman. And when you are new and trying to figure things out, that guy seems like exactly the kind of person you should be listening to. The problem is that surviving in Pattaya for a long time and actually thriving financially are completely different things. And most of the long-termers are not doing well financially. They are just still there. You will always get people that think they know better than everyone else. But I guess that is the same for everywhere in the world, really. A lot of the advice you will get in Pattaya is just from people who have also been making bad decisions. They've just been doing it for a lot longer. Someone will tell you how to set up a business through a Thai partner, or where to put your money so it works for you, how to get land in your name, those types of things. And they believe what they are saying. That is what makes it dangerous. A lot of them don't know what they are talking about, even though they are just trying to help you out. Though, you will find the odd shady expat that will try and rip you off financially. So, be careful on whose advice you actually take. There's also a weird social dynamic where admitting you don't know something in Pattaya feels like a weakness. You will get drips that start every single sentence with how long they have lived in Thailand, and they think it's a flex. Not only does nobody care how long they have lived in Thailand, but they are also made fun of by other Farangs and Thai people. Me personally, any Farang giving me financial advice and is encouraging me to invest in something in Pattaya or buy something, I would just decline. Number 6. treating Pattaya like a permanent holiday. This one is for the retirees, the nomads, and the long-term expats. Pattaya does something to your brain in the early stages that is hard to explain unless you've experienced it. You can watch all the videos about Pattaya, listen to all of the stories, and do as much research as you want, but you really need to experience it firsthand. The cost of everything, the weather, the carefree living, and every night being a weekend there, it creates a feeling that is genuinely unlike normal life. That feeling it gives you can be quite addictive in a quiet way. You stop thinking in terms of weeks and you just start living day to day, which sounds nice, and in small doses it is. But when it becomes your everyday life for months at a time, things can get pretty bad for you. On holiday, you spend freely and you're treating yourself, and you know you will be back to normal soon. A lot of guys that move out to Pattaya tell themselves they are going to have like a 2-week holiday or something, and then they are going to focus on their life. But for some, 2 years later, they are still living the holiday mode. A permanent holiday stops you from building anything. On holiday, you don't need to plan, you don't need to watch what you are spending, you don't need to think about the next year. That's the whole point of a holiday. But if you are stuck in that mode, you are just spending money, you are also not doing anything to create more of it or build any kind of future to live there. Time passes faster in Pattaya than people expect. Before you know it, 2 or 3 years have gone by and you are basically in the same position you arrived in, except with less money and fewer options. What makes it hard to get out of this is that Pattaya will never tell you the holiday is over. The bars will be open tomorrow, the weather will be good, and there will always be something to do tonight. The guys who do well long term are the ones who decided at some point that they are living in a place, not visiting one, and they started making better decisions. I know that sounds simple, but in Pattaya it's actually a pretty hard mental shift to make, and a lot of people never get there. With all of that said, I'm not saying don't have fun while living there. Still go out and do things, but don't get carried away like you are on holiday. Have nights in, go to the gym, focus on work, and you should be okay. Number 7. Arriving in Pattaya already broke or in debt, thinking the cheap lifestyle will magically fix your problems back home. This is another thing that people don't talk about when they are discussing how people lose money in Pattaya. The amount of people that travel to Pattaya with hardly any money, thinking they are going to have the time of their life, or find an online job and live there, or simply just think some random opportunity will come up, is actually crazy. There is a version of Pattaya that exists in people's head before they arrive, where the low cost of living is going to solve everything. They are struggling back home, money is tight, life is difficult, and somewhere in the research they have done, they have landed on the idea that if they can just get to a place where things are cheap enough, then they'll be able to get on top of things. Yeah, things genuinely are cheaper there, but it only works in your favour if you have money coming in. The guys who arrive already broke or in debt are starting from a position where any unexpected expense is a crisis, and Pattaya will absolutely provide unexpected expenses. Accidents happen. A health issue, a visa run, a bike accident, a deposit on accommodation. Any of these things can derail someone if they didn't financially plan for it. They are not back at home anymore, where they could probably get some help. In Pattaya, you are on your own in a foreign country with a language barrier and probably zero help. And let's face it, those guys that go to Pattaya with no money or are already financially struggling, we all know that they won't have travel insurance and have the mindset that nothing bad is going to happen to them. In Pattaya, you can eat well for 100 baht and sit in the sun for a little while. It genuinely feels like things are okay. That feeling is dangerous when your actual situation hasn't changed at all. The debt back home is still there. The reasons things weren't working are still there. They just added distance to their problems back home. Again, you will see these people a lot in Pattaya, and I don't want to sound bad here, but my advice is to just stay away from them, because eventually there will come a time that they ask you for help, which goes on to my next point, which is number 8, lending cash to expats. This one has been happening in Pattaya for as long as there have been expats there, and it still works constantly because it targets something decent in people. When people talk about Pattaya scams and ways to lose money there, hardly anyone ever mentions shady Farangs that are out there to pull a fast one on you, that are worse than some of the girls. If you come to Pattaya alone, you will be sitting in a bar. You'll get talking to a guy. He seems normal, maybe a bit down on his luck, tells you a story about how he lost all of his money in a scam or something that has left him short just for a few days. He's not asking for much, maybe a few hundred or a few thousand baht, just to tie him over until it sorts itself out. He says he will pay you back soon. You've been talking for 2 hours. He seems genuine and the amount isn't life-changing, so you hand it over. They know how to make the amount feel small enough that refusing it seems mean, but large enough that it's actually worth their time. They know to seem embarrassed about asking rather than comfortable with it, and by the time the ask comes, you feel you know the person well enough that saying no feels awkward. Some of these guys are genuinely professional about it. They have multiple versions of the same story for different Farangs, and they are very good at reading who is likely to give. They will target guys who are a few drinks in, who seem friendly and generous, who are clearly not struggling themselves, and mostly those that are travelling solo. Some of the guys won't even ask you straight away. They will make friends with you, go out with you a few nights, and you get to know them. Like I mentioned earlier with my experience, that happened to me. Got along great with a guy, and then it turned into me funding nights out until I ended our friendship. So, with this one, just keep your wits about you. Normally, you will know who's genuinely being friendly and who's being friendly for a shady reason. Number 9. Getting pulled into transactional relationships. I think this is the one reason that most people talk about, and one of the most obvious ones as well. You meet someone, she's good company, you enjoy spending time together, you end up catching feelings for her, and the financial side of things just kind of exists in the background as part of the arrangement. A lot of guys that have come out of these relationships will tell you honestly that it felt real, and in certain ways, maybe it was. Girls in Pattaya are very good at making you feel comfortable, loved, wanted, and make you feel that she actually wants to be with you. It is no mystery that a lot of men that go to Pattaya are a bit on the older side, probably never get attention back home, and are completely new to the amount of attention they will receive once they arrive. It normally starts like this. You end up doing the whole bar scene when arriving, going to new bars different nights, then you randomly meet a girl in a bar that you get along with more than the others. You can't explain it, but there's just something about her, something that makes her feel different from the rest. So, after the first night of meeting her, you go back to her bar again, and again, and again, buying her drinks each night and having fun. She will gradually tell you how much she likes you and give you a couple of sub-stories so you feel sorry for her. Next thing you know, you are paying the bar fine and taking her out on dates. It's romantic and fun, and you probably haven't felt like that in a long time. Then, she's stopping over at your place a couple of nights a week, which gradually turns into most nights a week. You are covering her food, her transport, her phone, then there's a family situation, a sick relative, something that needs money urgently. You help because you are in what feels like a relationship, and that is what a man does in a relationship. You add it all up after 6 months, and you've basically been a bank for another person and her family on top of your own costs. Now, I am not saying that all relationships are like that in Pattaya. Some of them genuinely like the guy. Some of the relationships have real feelings in them. But I would say there are more bad stories about relationships in Pattaya than there is good ones. And the bad ones almost always end up with the foreign losing a good chunk of money. The ones who lose the most to this are usually the guys who wanted it to be real badly enough that they stopped using their head and they thought their relationship is different from the countless bad ones. I personally feel sorry for the men that get taken this way, and I don't make fun of them, even if it's obvious she is with him for one reason, because I know it's easy to fall for. If you are new to Pattaya, don't know how everything works, not had much luck back home, it's really easy to fall for the words of someone that works in a bar. Number 10. Selling everything back home with no exit plan. The dream some people have to move to Pattaya after their first visit goes beyond just buying a plane ticket. They sell the car, clear out the flat, get rid of furniture, maybe even cash in some savings or a pension early. And they arrive having nothing to go back to if things go pear-shaped. The practical problem is, in my opinion anyway, that everyone that moves to Pattaya, no matter who they are, should have an exit plan in place. You literally have no idea when things could go wrong and you need to return home. But if you have nothing to go back to, especially a place to stay, then you are in a really bad position. A flight home costs money. Getting set up somewhere when you arrive back, that costs money. A deposit on a place to stay, transport, food while you find your feet, all of it costs money. And none of it is available to you if you spent everything to get to Pattaya and to live there. What makes it worse is that the people most likely to sell everything and arrive with that all-in mentality are often the ones who most needed the things they just sold. The car that gave them independence, the flat that gave them security, the savings that gave them options. They got rid of the exact thing that would have mattered the most if things went wrong. The version of this that really breaks people is when the dream turns bad gradually rather than all at once. If it collapsed immediately, you'd be forced to deal with it quickly while you still had some money left. But Pattaya has a way of degrading things gradually. The money gets lower month by month, the situation gets worse bit by bit, and by the time the reality sets in, there is often really nothing left to work with. No savings, no assets, nothing back home, and a life in another country that has quietly fallen apart around you while you were hoping it would sort itself out. So for this one, if you do plan to move to Pattaya, always have a backup plan. I don't care if you have a good amount of savings, a good job waiting for you in Pattaya, a long online work contract, or anything. Always have a backup plan and an exit plan. I have left the most obvious one until last, because most of you probably know about it or have heard some absolute horror stories about it, even though most people that this has happened to keep it quiet. And that is number 11, buying land or condo registered 100% in your Thai girlfriend's name. Thailand has a rule that foreigners cannot own land, and most people who spend any time there, they will learn this pretty quickly. Yes, I know there are certain ways a foreigner can own land, but it's not exactly easy. In fact, it's extremely hard, and most of the time, it requires big investments. But yeah, the average expat cannot own land. What a lot of people don't fully understand though, is what that actually means in practice when you are in a relationship and you want somewhere permanent to live. The workaround used constantly is putting everything in the Thai partner's name. She owns it legally, you live there. It feels like yours because you paid for it and you are the one living there every night. You have convinced yourself that this woman is your soulmate and you are going to be together until the end of days. It feels real enough day to day that a lot of guys genuinely stop thinking about the legal side of it all. The relationship, it feels perfect. Maybe you've been together a year or two, things are great, she's never given you a reason not to trust her. So, you hand over huge amounts of money and a piece of land or a condo gets registered in her name. And in a lot of cases, nothing bad happens for quite a while. You live there, life continues, and the whole relationship is going smoothly without any problems. But then, something changes. The relationship goes bad, which in Pattaya happens more times than not. Maybe her personality changes, maybe she might have met someone else, or even maybe you are the one who had a change of heart and realized she's not the woman you want to be with. Let's say she has met someone else, or always had a Thai boyfriend that you didn't know about, which happens more times than you'd actually think. Now, you are in a really bad situation, because legally it is her property. You have no contract, no legal claim, nothing in writing that a Thai court is going to look at and rule in your favour. The money you put in is just gone, and the process of trying to recover any of it will be expensive and in most cases completely unsuccessful. The thing that makes this so hard to talk love-struck people out of is that it works fine for plenty of couples, and those people will tell you it's not a big deal. And they are right that it worked out for them. But the ones it didn't work out for are often too embarrassed to talk about it. The guys who lost a house or a piece of land to this situation, most of the time, they just quietly disappear from Pattaya and process it somewhere else. Meaning the warning never gets as loud as it should be, given how often it actually happens. And that's it. Pattaya is the best city in the world in my opinion, but it can also eat you alive if you don't have your head screwed on.